Thank y'all once again for joining. This is the G podcast where we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future, and everything else. And today we got a special guest, Sebastian Ryder. We getting right to it, y'all.
It doesn't matter how you feel.
No talk back.
It doesn't matter how you feel.
Yes, indeed, y'all. Once again, we got Sebastian Ryder in the building. This is the G podcast where we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future, and everything else. Ryder, thank you so much for joining.
With that intro music, man, I feel like I'm like walking out to a heavyweight title fight, man. That's
you got the lights behind you too and everything with the theme. So it's definitely coming out like a champ, man. Pause. So I got to get right to it here because one, I appreciate you for joining, but we are from adjacent cities. I want to just first question here. You're from Raleigh. Are you born in Raleigh or raised in Raleigh?
Born and raised in Raleigh. I live in Jersey City right now. I'm currently in this area. So I say I'm from New York, Jersey. I'm looking at the skyline right now. We're like right across the Hudson, but born and raised 25 years in Raleigh, North Carolina. Spent like 2 years in Austin, Texas when I was in elementary school. But for the most part, that's where my roots are.
Word. And being a Durham, man, I want to just ask you, like, if somebody were to just say, what's the difference between Raleigh versus Durham? How would you answer that question?
Now, I would say Durham is like more, it's taken a little bit longer to develop, right? I feel like before, you hear like Durham is the Bull City, right? Like a lot more of an urban population and you got the Durham Bulls. But I feel like now downtown Durham versus downtown Raleigh, it's even more of an eccentric crowd. Like I feel like it's a little bit more of a creative energy. I haven't been there in a little while, but I know y'all got like the art museums now. And of course you got the Durham Bulls, several dope breweries and stuff, which always brings unique vibes. So I feel like now there's not too big of a difference, but while I was growing up, it was like, you shouldn't be in Durham after a certain time. You dig what I'm saying? And when we played like Riverside and all those schools in football, and when I was younger playing rec, like whenever we would play the Durham teams, it would be all these big black kids, and we'd be like, we gotta go to Durham and play these big man. Like, and that was never fun. But cheers to Durham, man.
Hey man, cheers to Durham. And since we got Raleigh in the building, man, cheers to Raleigh too as well. While we at it, since we cheers, and let me just go ahead, since we on some very local Old Hillside in the building, man. If y'all already out there, y'all already know what we on, man. It's that rye, straight rye whiskey today, Old Hillside. Growing up in Raleigh, like let's just shout out some of the hallways you walk. So if anybody hear this, what are some of the schools that you matriculated through as you grew up in Raleigh?
Preschool, I went to Bright Horizons. I think I was like in Cary, like over in RTP, like off Page Road, 540, giving the exact geo coordinates. Elementary school, I went to Lynn Road. And then, like I said, I went to school in Austin, Texas as well. Went to like Cowan and Mills Elementary, but Raleigh was Lynn Road for me. And then for middle school, West Millbrook before the renovations, then Leesville Road High School, and then actually took a few classes at Wake Tech as well. So pretty much been all around the board, and like Millbrook, Wakefield, Sanderson, all them, they were in the same division as us. Spent a good amount of time at those campuses and with people from those schools as well.
Word. And I know, like, getting into your journey, your path has been unique. Like this idea of hustling, creating businesses. What was the first business you ever created, and how old were you?
First official business was my clothing brand, Ryder brand, and I was 19 years old. That was in 2016, so 7 years ago now. And
what about unofficial business, though? What about unofficial?
I mean,
we can share,
That we can share. I got an interesting story, too, if we can. Well, actually, I don't know. We might need to get out into that off camera. But the first business back when like Soulja Boy was big and he had the rubber band chains. Me and a few of my homeboys, and I think it was like 7th or 8th grade, we used to put those together, like the big thick rubber band chains, and you fold them up and you loop them and then you hook them at the end. We used to sell those for like 10, 20 bucks. And we made a couple of dollars doing that. But that was like the first time I was like, all right, like this little like free enterprise is a vibe. Like I like it.
So the first sort of entrepreneurial endeavor was even in the realm of fashion, if we being honest, because you're talking about an era where were definitely wearing rubber bands as fashion accessories. That was a thing.
And the glasses with like the whiteout on them too. All pretty much the Soulja Boy, like the Soulja Boy startup kit. I was making it and I was selling it. And at that time, it was like the New Boys, like You're a Jerk type vibes. We was wearing the skinny jeans. We had the tight Aeropostale, Hollister, Abercrombie polos. Like we was just walking around. We swore we was one of the New Boys. And like any accessory that went along with that, we were trying to make it and make a few dollars off it too. And also just like the typical, like the selling packs of bubble gum and like because back in the day, like I don't know if kids still give a shit about gum. I never see people chewing gum anymore. But when I was in middle school, it was like if you had a pack of gum in class,
right,
that's an asset. Sell like pieces of gum out of the pack. You know what I'm saying? And then we had like the chocolate bars and like that, but that was just some little chill shit.
Word. But that is funny because there is always a class who got some gum, man. Always a class some gum, man. And everybody know it's him too. Everybody know it's him. Be like, man, what you got today? Let me get some, man. So that's very interesting to hear. Leaving high school, you mentioned you did some things at Wake Tech. Like, let's talk about that. Like from your point of view, why was college not a fit? Or let me ask more so, why didn't you finish college once you got there?
Yeah. Well, I went to 3 schools. I started out at Brevard College because I played lacrosse for 3 years in high school, and I played varsity football my senior year at Leesville. When my grades were never good, I had like a 2.6 in high school. I had a terrible GPA. So when it came time for us to start like applying for colleges, like all my friends were getting into these universities, and I wanted, obviously, like you have the fear of missing out, like on these days when everybody's wearing the universities that they're going to and everybody's so excited about it. Like for me, it came down to the wire, and it was a small school called Brevard College in Western North Carolina. And basically they were like, yo, we can give you a leadership scholarship for $25,000. You come do an interview, you speak to this council about what value you can add to the university. I went, small liberal arts school, like 700 people there. Went there, played lacrosse, played football. Didn't get a scholarship to play, but I was able to come in and be a part of the football team. I was there for fall camp. I played football for fall season, and then played lacrosse as well, and then left, right? Just because there was 600, 700 people there at the school, and I graduated from a school that had 2,500 people in high school. For me, I'm an extrovert all the way, and once you meet everybody at the school within the first month of being there, it was just kind of like, the only reason I'm here is to try and play sports, and for what? Like, I'm barely getting playing time. You know what I'm saying? Every minute that I'm spending in outside of practicing and going to playing sports was making music with my homeboys. So then I was like, you know what? This isn't for me. The tuition was crazy. So I dropped out of there after 1 semester. And then I went to Wake Tech, and I took like some business classes, basic marketing classes, like that. I took like sociology, which was the only class that I really gave a about. Just kind of like understanding human nature. Then I took like pre-calculus and all that terrible. And then from there, I know this is kind of long-winded, but just to give you context, at that point, I actually had got my first job for real. Not first paying job. I worked at Foot Locker when I was younger, but my first job where I was making a substantial amount of money, and that was with Spencer Properties, which was a real estate firm in Raleigh. They're one of the top boutique firms still to this day in Raleigh. And I was kind of doing property management, courier services for them, just like dropping off letters, dropping off supplies at closings. And I could have kept doing that. That summer, I went and tried to get my real estate license and pretty much bullshit the real estate class. And I ended up, that was really what I was going to do. I was going to do real estate. And this was before like all the tattoos and all the and all this. So, I was cleaned up and I was like, like I'm young, I'm black. There's a market for me here in Raleigh. Like I could do this, but I didn't take it serious. When I didn't pass my real estate exam, my parents were basically just like, yo, like you're not about to just be sitting around like bullshit, and, you know what I'm saying, in our house. So you need to do something. So I was like, well, all of my friends go to ECU. So I got enrolled at Pitt Community College and ended up living with one of my homeboys from college on campus at ECU. We can dive into the context of the time that I was there because those were important years, but it was just the same. I just was going to class just because it was something to do. I never really gave a about it. There were a few classes that interest me, but outside of that, it was just like, I'm just here to make my parents happy. And once I started my business, and I was making a little bit of money and saw it as an opportunity to be an entrepreneur, I said, why am I here? Like, I'm going to business classes and I have a business and it's doing pretty well. So I don't need it. And that's arrogant of me, but look at it now. People have different perspectives on school.
So the first official business you created, that was when you were at ECU or at Pitt in Greenville?
Yep. So that was that fall, right? So 2015, I graduated high school. Fall of 2015, I went to Brevard. That spring semester of 2016, I went to Wake Tech. That summer was when I worked a real estate job. And then that fall was when I moved to Greenville, went to Pitt. And I started Ryder brand in November of 2016. My first collection dropped December 13th of 2016.
So let me ask you this. Given that you had that experience so close to real estate, opportunity, seeing there, but like you say, you didn't take it serious. Why was it difficult for you to take it serious at that time?
Just because, transparently speaking, man, and I'm excited to tell the rest of the story, bro, because it's funny how everything ties together. But honestly, man, I was just immature, dude. Like I took the class with one of my best friends from high school who actually works in real estate now. That's also the guy that I lived with when I was in Greenville for the first year. But we took it together. We were young. I was already making money, you know what I'm saying, working in property management. I had like a new Camaro and I thought I was the shit. So I was just kind of pulling up the class like, all right, this is easy. Like I work for a real estate firm. Like I know this. I can do this in my sleep. And then when that exam came, I realized like there's a reason why they gave us a 500-page textbook. Like I should have probably read this. And there was the way that it was set up too, is it was just like there was like a threshold where like you don't have to legitimately like pass with flying colors, but you had to score over a certain point, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't even hit over that certain point. So they were just like, sorry, man. Like, and I was embarrassed, bro. I just probably made up some excuse as to why I didn't pass and just went from there, bro. But I was just immature, man, childish.
I'm gonna circle back because I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. I didn't really take school serious. I had below a 3.0 coming out of high school. I happened to get into one school, and that's the school I went to for college. Yeah. And even when I was there, I was just there. I wasn't thinking about next steps. I was just like going to class, not thinking about what the next thing would be. And I feel like I can relate to what you say, just like not taking things serious at that time period, because I didn't take, say, a lot of opportunities serious. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna circle back to that a little bit later. But the first business you created, you were in Greenville, Ryder brand. Like, talk to me about that brand. What does that mean?
Well, my middle name, obviously, I go by Ryder. As y'all can see on the bottom of the screen, my first name is Sebastian, and that's what everybody knows me from growing up. And Ryder was, my dad gave me the name because he named me after like his fake British accent that he would use when he would go on trips with his homeboy that was from the UK. and they would go on trips, and my dad would put on a fake British accent and be like, "Oh, my name's Sebastian Ryder," right? That was such a cool name to him, so he gave me that name. Ryder was always like, I knew it was a cool ass name. Like, people would be like, "What's your name?" And I'd be like, "Sebastian Ryder," and they'd be like, "Yo, Ryder's dope. Why don't you go by that?" Right? And I was just like, nah. Because growing up, Ryder is like, you think that's like the white kid with the flippy hair and the skateboarder and all this stuff. And then when I got to Pitt, really what happened was, man, like, I got tied in with the Greek community and made a lot of friends in that space. And I started to recognize a trend of everybody was wearing comfort colors, right? Like, they were wearing their fraternity tees, or they would wear like a Calcutta tee, or they would just wear a blank comfort color shirt because it was the only real like heavyweight t-shirt that everybody really knew about. But for me, I saw that as an opportunity because I was like, well, I love clothes, you know what I'm saying? And I want to make money. I don't want to do this other anymore, which was like extra recreational money generation. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I got robbed. So I was like, well, dude, like, what can I do that's dope? Well, my name is Ryder, so I'm going to start a clothing brand called Ryder Brand. And at first, it was just as simple as that. I got an investment from my pops for like $300. I told him the idea. And of course, he loved it because he named me Sebastian Ryder. He was like, yeah, Ryder Brand, I'll buy 5 of them. I got my homeboy Deontay Holden, who I just had on my podcast, Thoughts by Ryder. He printed out like 10 shirts for me with literally just a calligraphy font, not a specific font to me, no creative design, just the word Ryder across a shirt in vinyl print. And I was selling them for like 25, 30 bucks. And I sold out of them. I had 10 of them. I gave 2 to my dad, and then I sold 6 and I kept 2 for myself. I sold out of those, and I like did my first posts on Instagram, and I thought I was a model. And then from there, man, it just scaled. But what really, and I know you want to ask more questions, but yeah, what really happened was I just wanted to put a design on some comfort color shirts because I knew people would wear them. I knew it was going to be comfortable. And then I created the moniker Realize Your Dreams Enhance Reality, which is the acronym for Ryder. And then I just developed a brand and leveraged my ability to communicate and kind of cultivate a message to people and built out the brand on that acronym. And then so it became more than just a t-shirt with Ryder on it. It became me presenting something to the world and trying to inspire young people at the time. Yo, yeah, you're in college. Yeah, you're doing this. You might have a job, but like, realize your dreams and improve your reality, right? Take a risk and improve your reality. So people bought into that man, and it was big. It was big.
Word. And what, like, do you still produce clothes under that brand, or is it something that's since been like up in the rafters, something that or maybe a time capsule might drop in the future, but not something you're actively really designing for?
We did 5 collections, and then we did or maybe, I don't even remember, maybe like a year and a half ago, my little brother designed a collection, and I helped him market that. We went from 2016 to 2019, did 5 collections. And honestly, like, I have ADD, man, and like, I'm very high eye, and I'm always looking for the next opportunity. And we can get into like the lessons learned, but it just got to a certain point where my supply outweighed the demand, right? I just kind of had to realize to myself, like, yo, the brand is Ryder Brand. So I can't detach from this. And part of building a good business is being able to scale. And it's hard to scale something with your name on it, because your name, the brand is only going to be as big as your name is. And for me, I'm trying to just create something that can generate me something at this time, mind you. I'm just trying to create something that's going to make me some money so I can go out to the bars and buy drinks and be cool and buy out a booth every now and then. And at the same time, be able to wear my own clothes and see other people in my clothes and inspire. Once I realized that the growth potential on it was capped, I just kind of fell back from it. And then as we go down the story, we'll get into this. But yeah, that was kind of my thought process then. So no, I'm not actively doing that anymore. And I don't know, maybe down the line we'll do a little collab, or we'll do a little something for the day ones. But I think I got what I needed to get out of it, and I think that sometimes you have to know when to bow out gracefully, and that's what I did.
No, for sure. For sure. You definitely, the exit strategy is important. But I guess my question is, from that experience, making clothes, creating a brand, what were probably the 2 or 3 biggest takeaways that help you with what we call Seventh Thought Club?
Well, I'll give you three. So the first one was supply chain management. Understanding the basics of operating a product-based business, which is understanding how much your supplies are going to cost. What relationships can I establish to drive that original upfront cost as low as possible, and then be able to make the quality as high as it can be. So it's kind of like operating on that axis of price versus quality, and maximizing that as much as you can while still creating a profit. And for me, I was lucky enough to get a direct plug into Gildan up in Boston. So I was able to get my comfort colors for a fraction of the cost. If you were to just go on, like, even today, if you were to go on a bulk resale site, I was getting my shirts for 25 to 30% of what other people are having to pay just for the blank. Then on top of that, I had a direct plug with a printer in Greenville. And because I had so much quantity and I had the capability to do that, I was not only able to supply them with blanks so that they could print for their clients, but because I was able to offer that value to them, I was then able to supply my own garments. And a lot of times people have to spend a lot of money because you have to go straight through the printer to get the shirt and the print, and a lot of times even the tagging. So for me, I learned how to sew. I got a relationship, got my price on the upfront garment as low as possible, and I was able to create a relationship where I was getting my printing at a rate to where I was able to charge standard cost for goods at customer facing and still be able to make 2 times the margin of somebody else that would, sell the exact same product. So that was one, understanding supply chain management, relationships, and the value of, like, exchanging value. Also understanding how to create a brand, right? Because especially nowadays, back in 2016, like, obviously you had a lot of people doing brands, but social media wasn't as in depth as it is now. So the opportunity there was no TikTok, right? So the opportunity for people to be able to build a brand on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever wasn't as, like, readily available. So I had to learn how to leverage my own audience and my platform to cultivate a message. My only problem with Ryder brand was that no matter how much I try to expand and add to the foundation was still me. So people that were buying from me were people that knew me. And granted, I had some sales all over the country and even overseas, but they were still people that followed my personal brand. And if you didn't follow my personal brand, then you don't really know, because I'm not even running ads at the time. So I learned how to build a brand, and I also learned how to operate social media. And truly, I learned how to run ads. I learned how to edit photos. I learned how to creative direct, because I had to be on set to direct all of my brand promo videos. I pretty much just learned, like, how to market. And that's something that you really just get on the ground work. You can read a book all day, you can read a course, you can do whatever, but until you step out in the field with a sign that says, buy this product, and 100 people look at you and keep walking, you have to figure out what's going to get them to stop and hear you out. Through building Ryder brand, I learned a lot of those things.
Okay. Word. Definitely, like you said, entrepreneurial, business minded. My question is, what then led you to this world of corporate sales, tech sales, going from, because if I take a step back,
Yeah.
a lot of young, especially Black males, right? If they don't finish school, the next step can be blurry. Like, what am I gonna do next, right?
Yeah.
But yet you seemingly kept pushing along and found a way and eventually, like, leverage your skill set to professionalize it, right? Between creating Ryder brand in Greenville, did you like, when did you leave Greenville and why?
Frankly, I left Greenville because I got an opportunity. I mean, because mind you, I'm there for 2 years, right? And I did 3 collections in 2 years, and I was working on my fourth. It just kind of got to the point, like I said, man, like I kind of get bored. Like if I'm in the same place for a long time and like I continue going through the same routine over and over again for a while, like I get bored. And mind you, Greenville is cool because it's cool for younger people. It's cool when you're in school because it's a college town. There's
Gee,
nothing else out
Vegas.
there. Exactly. But it's a black hole, right? There's nothing else out there for you to do except for party, drink, go to class, and go to a football game, right? So for me, I felt like I wanted to go back to Raleigh because one, I was starting to lose focus. I
Mm.
was, making money and then I was spending money on bullshit, getting drunk, you know what I'm saying? Just wilding out, doing bullshit. And two, I knew that I wasn't going to graduate college at this point. Like I was battling back and forth between, like I'm not trying to, this college is not for me. So why am I sitting in a town where the only thing that's relevant to everybody is college? You feel me?
Why did you know you weren't gonna graduate? What clicked for you to say this just ain't gonna be it?
Because for me, like candidly speaking, I just didn't really give a shit about it. Like I knew, like I would much rather. It got to the point where it was like, okay, do I want to go to class today, or do I want to package up orders, or go out and shoot a brand video, or do I want to walk around campus and just bullshit, or play video games, or whatever. Like I was just
Everything but school.
yeah, I mean, and the best way to explain it, man, is just like I wasn't living, for me, I was just not living the same life that everyone else there was, right? Like
Mhm.
during the day, my roommates, still two of my best friends to this day, I was living with both of my roommates were enrolled at ECU, right? So every day we just live different lives. They will wake up at 8 a.m. and go to class and be gone all day doing school. And I would just be sitting at the crib by myself all day, sleeping in until like 10, 11 o'clock. Maybe I had some orders to ship out. Maybe I'll drive over to Cookout, get some food, and then I'm going to watch YouTube videos and play video games. Like, and then when they get back, they're like, yo, it was good. Like, you trying to go get some drinks? And I'm like, yeah. So then at night, I go out and I'm one of the college kids. But I just kind of got tired of like sitting around by myself all day. And like, I'm just living a completely different life and I'm not benefiting here.
Mhm.
Because I kind of had reached the cap, right? Like, how many people are going to continue to buy the same shirt and hoodie and crew neck in the same space? So I kind of wanted to just diversify like my audience and take on other opportunities and get a job, right? Make more consistent bread too.
When you went back to Raleigh, what was that first job? Like, what type of job was it?
When I first got back to Raleigh, and mind you, remember relationships, man, like that was a huge thing I learned. When I first went back to Raleigh, I got a job in direct to consumer sales, selling DirecTV and AT&T services on the floor of Sam's Club and Costco in Raleigh. I was making about $300, $400 a week. And that was my first job that I had when I first came back to Raleigh. We would have to wake up Monday through Saturday at 7 a.m., have like a 1.5 hour like war room where basically like we're going over our pitch. And then from 8 to 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, we're standing in sales in Sam's Club, like waiting on people to walk in the door and then walking up to them and asking them how much their internet bill is. And I was one of the best people there. And it was cool. I was making money, but I just hated that because at this point, mind you, I had already built a clothing brand and scaled my clothing brand. So my ego too, like this was before I learned that sometimes you got to detach from ego. It was a big ego hit for me to come back to Raleigh, live with my parents and go stand in Sam's Club and sell cell phone service to people when I was just the man in my city that I was just in. So that was my first gig and it sucked. I made good money, but I hated that man. But I also learned a lot doing that as well.
So it like, because you said on the like floor, hand to hand, talking to people who coming in there for eggs, coming in there for basically everything, but thinking I'm about to get something like this from Sam's. like what are some of those takeaways from a role like that? Because like you said, it was an ego check, but like what were some of those lessons learned from that role?
Bear with me 1 second. Let me plug this in. We're good money. So you said what were some of the lessons learned from that role?
Yeah, because like you said, it was a moment where you had to, like you said, you hadn't quite learned about the ego and what that can do to you, right? So that's already one lesson learned. But aside
Yeah.
from that, like professionally speaking, did you get anything of value in retrospect from having to work that job, and what were some of those things?
Yeah, I mean, I think, sorry for the delay on that and for making you repeat yourself too, by the way, but right there is one. The ego thing is one in itself, right? Like having to literally stand there and like you said, people that are coming in to buy eggs and milk and shop for groceries and just have to walk up to them and sell them some that maybe they don't even need, right? And then deal with them saying, yo, off, like get out of my face, like, or yo, like, no, I'm not interested, or whatever. And you have to keep doing it. Like, it's basically like door to door sales. That was one thing, just like taking that ego hit of just being like, dude, like you're standing in Sam's Club and you're selling this and people are telling you no to your face all day. That was one thing. And that kind of like eliminated. I learned how to, because there is a place for ego, right? Like you got to know who you are and the value that you provide. But for me, I needed to be knocked down a couple notches, right? I needed to hear no a couple times. I needed to hear a few people tell me to off that had on dirty New Balances and dirty stuff. You know what I'm
So
saying?
why did you need that in your
I
opinion?
needed it, man, because one, I didn't have a college degree. So I'm just raw dogging life at this point because mind you, this is 7 years ago or 6 years ago. So now with all this thought leadership and all these podcasts and all these successful people that are getting money without a degree, there were people doing it back then. But like I said, social media wasn't as loud. So I'm the one person out of my friend group from high school and from college that just left. I'm just going through life like, oh yeah, like I can just start a business. I don't need school. Like I don't need anything traditional. I'm just going to do this my way. I'm going to do everything that I want to do. So I needed people to be like, yo, like what the like get a real job, like get out of my face. I needed that hustle. I needed to know like, yo, this is the reality of the world. Like you were in college town. You were able to start a business because you didn't have expenses. You were just walking around. You had your friends. Your friends are going to spend money. It's not even their money. It's their parents' money. So they're just choosing to buy a shirt from you because over getting beer or getting drinks. Like, cool. But in the real world, people are going to tell you to get the out of their face. I needed that reality check of, damn, if I'm not going to do the college thing, I got to face the fact that I got to get up every single day and deal with whatever life throws at me, right? It's not a fairy tale. And that was huge. That was huge for me. I think also, I mean, I just learned how to sell, right? Like I already knew how to sell and I feel like I've been selling my whole life, but I think that I learned how to like follow a structure of sales, right? Like anybody that's
Sales
in
process.
exact, like I understood the sales process. Like I understood how to break down, you know what I'm saying, the intro, like the pitch, the qualification, the close. In that space, closing was like the biggest thing that you if you couldn't close, you would never make money because you're basically taking this person, again, we'll say the eggs thing, that's coming in here to buy eggs and you're trying to sell them a new cell phone. So if you can't qualify them, make them think that the phone that they have right now is a piece of and get them to spend that money right on the spot with you, you're not gonna be successful. So I had to learn how to sell, man. I learned some shit, dude. I learned how to talk to people better. I learned EQ, emotional intelligence. I learned how to overcome objections and just have perseverance and keep pushing through some shit that like you don't want to do, but you need to do it. You know what I'm saying? And that's just kind of and just trying to be the best. You feel me?
But why did you ultimately leave that position going direct to consumer at Sam's, and you were selling cell phone services at the time, correct?
And direct TV and like Sunday
Indirect.
ticket.
Okay, so telecom services as a bundle.
Exactly. So why did I leave that? So again, relationships, right? I was just at this point in time, I'm making content like because I'm still trying Ryder brand at this point. I would say when I left Greenville, Ryder brand was up here. And when I was working this job, it was still there, but it was kind of like starting on its decline. So I'm still trying to like keep my personal brand up. I'm posting a bunch of like motivational content, and I'm still active on social media with my personal brand. So fast forward a couple months of me being in that role. At this point, I'm burnt out. I hate it, right? My manager was a douchebag. Like, I didn't with that guy. And it was just like one of the mortgage lenders who worked for the real estate firm that I originally did property management and courier services at. Basically, I was getting money now. Like, I was making a couple $1,000s a month, to where I thought, being naive, yo, I'm gonna buy some real estate. Because at the time, that's like, yo, wealth is in real estate. I'm reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Ty Lopez is big at this time. Like, everybody's like, yo, buy a house, flip the house, or like buy it and then have roommates live in it. So I reach out to the mortgage lender that I knew from working at the real estate firm, and I went to meet him. And this was when I got my reality check about credit. This was when I got my reality check about DTI, having to, balance your expenses and your liabilities versus
DTI for listeners is
debt to income ratio. So basically, if you're making five to, let's just say, $10,000 a month, and your expenses are 6,000, then your back end DTI ratio is 60%, right? So basically, you can't qualify for a house if your DTI is over a certain amount. And at this time, I was just getting credit cards just to have credit cards, because I didn't know, like, I didn't grow up in a household that really taught me like really good financial literacy. So I go to the bank and they're like, hey, you want $1,000 line of credit? And I'm like, yeah, I want $1,000 line of credit, right? And they're like, oh, just spend it on gas. Like, just spend it on gas and like, fast food, and then just pay it off. And I'm like, oh yeah, great. And then I'll go to PacSun and buy like 10 pair of jeans, you know what I'm saying? And then make the minimum payment. So I got the reality check on that. But anyways, I saw that today. I go in this mortgage firm. I don't qualify for the house, ladies and gentlemen. But the mortgage lender is like, yo, like, what are you doing right now? Because he knew me from working at the real estate firm. And I was like, dude, man, like, I'm doing direct to consumer sales. I'm standing in Sam's Club all day. He's like, have you ever considered like becoming a mortgage lender, like getting your mortgage license? I'm like, well, I'm like, nah, I've never thought about that, but shit, like, how much money could I make? He was like, dude, like, you can make 6 figures. You can make da-da-da-da. Because the mortgage lender and the real estate agent goes hand in hand. They're like a tandem. A deal can't close on the real estate side without a mortgage lender getting that buyer approved to purchase the house. So it's like a symbiotic relationship. And at this point, because I had worked in the real estate industry, I knew a ton of people in that space. And my dad owned a catering business. A lot of his network was real estate agents. So I was like, this makes sense. 2 weeks after having that conversation, I basically like overslept a day, and overslept because the war room was like 7 a.m. and I slept in that day. I was like, I'm not going. So the guy called me and he was like, yo, where are you? And I was like, dude, like, I'm sleeping, man. Like, I'm not coming in today, dog. And he was like, oh, you don't want to come in today? All right, well, don't ever come back then. And I'm like, dude was a complete head, bro. Like, that's how he talked. Don't ever come back then. So I'm like, all right, mind you, I'm one of the top salespeople in the company. And he's talking to me like that. So I'm like, okay. And right when I got fired that day, I walked out. I was still staying with my parents. I went downstairs and I was like, yo, they were like, why aren't you at work? I was like, man, I quit that this morning. And they were like, what do you mean you quit? I put on a button down. I put on some slacks. I drove to the mortgage office and I was like, yo, Rick, that was my boss. That ended up being my boss. I was like, yo, I quit my job, man. Like, what do I need to do to get my license? So he told me what I needed to do, and I got my mortgage license. And then I became a mortgage lender.
How long did you do that for?
All over the place, guys.
How long were you a mortgage lender?
For a year.
For a year. Okay.
Yeah, man.
And just what was that experience like as a mortgage lender? Because and the reason I'm asking, for a couple reasons. My wife is a realtor, so she's on that side of things. Mm-hmm. I know some lenders. I do plan to have some others on in the future in case you're listening, just to have that conversation in more detail. But just from your experience, so going from almost like hand-to-hand sales to some degree to a completely different situation, completely different industry.
Yeah.
Like, how did we make that shift?
Dude, honestly, man, like, it's just supreme confidence and just optimism. And like, I just honestly, even to this day, like I just feel like, and honestly, it shoots me in the foot sometimes. But we can get into that later, like the whole mindset. But I just said, it, like, why not? Why can't I be a mortgage lender, right? Like, why not? That, mind you, the average age of a mortgage lender is like 53 years old, and it's not glamorous at all. Like real estate, you can build, and I'm sure they're fast forward with social media again now, like coming back to that. There's a lot of mortgage lenders that like have made it cool to be a mortgage lender, but really the sexy job is the real estate agent, right? And the lender is just kind of like the person that just is behind the scenes that like helps get everything done, right? I was just like, man, like why not? Like this could be my career. Because at this point, mind you, like again, Ryder brand is starting to fall to the wayside, and I'm starting to think like, damn, like, well, what if this entrepreneurship isn't really for me? Like, what if I need to just get a real job? And mind you, I don't have a college degree. A lot of my like income was like opportunity based on relationships that people were like, yo, you can come work here. Like, you don't need a college degree to be a lender. Like, you don't need to do this. So I'm like, I can make six figures. Why not? So I take my license and I take this a lot more serious than the real estate exam. And so I passed that and I become a lender. But the problem was I'm 21 years old and I barely know anything about being a lender. And the only real estate agents that I knew were the best real estate agents in Raleigh, like the Ida Turbits of the world, the Linda Crafts, the Jennifer Spencers, the Angela Drums, the Angie Coles. Like if you Google these names, these are like the top real estate agents in Raleigh. And those were the only ones that I really knew, right? So, and they already had like lender relationships. So here I am, I don't have really any money. So I can't go to them and be like, yo, I'll sponsor your event if you partner with me and give me some clients. That's pretty, and we can get into it, how I like manifested that and moved on to the next thing. But I don't want to start that off.
So I mean, it's a podcast. That's what we're here to do is talk. But you talk about these relationships.
Yeah.
And even at, say, what I would call a young age of 21, you've already started to benefit from relationships. So, like, how did you cultivate, in your opinion, these relationships that ended up paying dividends later on? Like, why is that the case? And how did you go about actually making it happen?
Honestly, man, like my pops is one of the best chefs in North Carolina, right? In my opinion, he is the best. His network and the clients that he was able to service were some of the top people in their industries, right? Because his services are not cheap. So the people that hire my dad are top of industry. I'm talking like the founder, CEO of Fortnite, the founder and CEO of Price Company. Like we did events for Amazon, like big companies like that. Mind you, I had been going to these events with my dad since I was 15 years old. So I'm building these relationships. These titans of industry are seeing me grow from a boy into a man. And because I was around those people all the time, and my dad really encouraged me to like talk to these people and learn from these people. One, I was able to develop like my communication skills. I was very articulate. I've always been able to express myself and communicate clearly. So regardless of my aesthetic, like I've always been able to have that conversation. If you saw me walking on the street, like you might just think, oh, look at this dude with blonde hair and tattoos and a barbed wire chain. But then you start talking to me and you're like, this dude, he can actually hold his weight in a conversation. That's how it kind of was. So meeting all these people, I just tapped into them, man. Like I was never afraid to reach out and ask to go to lunch or reach out and say, hey, like, I just want to, can we talk on the phone for 20, 30 minutes? Like, and I just want to learn. Like I would call these real estate agents and at first I would try to pitch them like, hey, like I want to be your lender. The whole time I'm getting licensed, I'm like, yeah, like I'm getting licensed because I want to be your lender, right? And they're like, yo, like we already have lender relationships, but I can tell you like what we value in a lender. So this whole time I'm learning about all this. That's kind of like, that's how it is, man. That's the root.
All right. So you described it like being on the backs, the like behind the scenes, not quote unquote as sexy as the real estate agent position. Why was that role not a fit for you?
So it's funny story, right? My journey at the firm. which leads into my next entrepreneurial venture. But I was a member of like a lot of groups, like associations that were big groups of lending companies, and real estate agents would come and XYZ, right? The reason why it didn't work was because I didn't really have anything in common with, like, a big part of relationships for me, and a big part of like being able to communicate with people is finding things in common. I don't really have anything in common with a 53-year-old white man with a wife and 3 kids to support. Like, I don't really have that much in common with you. So for me, I'm going to all these events, I'm networking with all these people, and I'm trying to learn, but it's just, I can't, there was just a certain threshold where like, I don't, like, they're talking to me about like, oh, well, where'd you go to school? And I'm like, oh, I didn't go to school. Like, I like had a clothing brand and I became a lender. And like, probably what a lot of people are thinking right now, like, this is an interesting life. Like, why are you a mortgage lender? Like, why are you doing this? And so instead of like moving the needle forward, I found myself always having to like explain myself to these people before I could even like have a conversation about doing business. So what happened was I kind of got to a point where I was like, well, like, I'm not going to be able to really get business by just like going out and generating business the same way as these other people, right? And mind you, in real estate, a lot of these lenders work with these realtors for decades. Like, these are like best friends who, one guy was like, yo, I'm going to become a real estate agent. And then the other guy was like, all right, I'm going to become a mortgage lender. And then they just decide to like work with each other for the whole trajectory of their relationship and business. I was like, I'm not going to really be able to get business that way. The younger realtors that I know aren't really closing enough business, right, for me to even really be able to do anything. And a lot of those younger agents work for these bigger firms that have partnerships already with these lending organizations. So I couldn't even really get in the door. So what I figured out is like, all right, if I'm not going to be able to get business the traditional way, then I need to figure out a way to become the coolest lender in the world. So I changed my Instagram handle to the Fly Mortgage Guy. And basically what I started doing is I just like started dressing as nice as I possibly could, taking content, taking videos, and basically like bringing a video element and like putting out content and explaining, if these realtors aren't going to hear me out, I'm going to make videos and post them for my audience to see like what we offer. So somehow, some way, I was able to make these lending programs sound cool, right? Like, instead of trying to work with realtors, I was trying to go direct to the consumer, which is 20 to 21 to 25 to 30, like Gen Z and millennials, and trying to inform them on like first time home buyer packages and like tell them about the benefits of buying real estate. I just started creating content. And once I started creating content, everybody else in the firm that I worked for was like, yo, like, can you show us how to do that? Like, can you help us make these videos so that we can put them out for our team? But then my role kind of switched from being an MLO that wasn't really closing loans to being the brand manager of the 7 to 8 lenders that worked in the same firm as me. So my role kind of pivoted from being a lender to being a social media manager for the firm. And I ended up getting put on salary as the social media manager for the firm. That's kind of how that happened.
Word. So just opportunity, taking advantage, and doors open up. So
yeah.
How long did you end up managing the social media?
So that I started doing that I got my license in like November. I tried like, being an MLO solely for like probably like 4 or 5 months. And then in April is when like I really started. And mind you, this is like a rough timeline, but if you're watching this video and you've been following me since the beginning, like you probably remember like my mortgage videos and me talking about like real estate and shit. But so April, maybe May, I started like creating the content and managing the team. And that's when I negotiated a salary, which was small. I think it was like $2,400 a month. But the thing about being a lender is if you don't close loans, you're not on salary. Being a real estate agent, if you don't close loans, you're not making any money. So I was making near $0 for the first 5 months of me being a lender. I finally got some money, so I was happy about it. So then I actually went to Europe for like 47 days for like that entire summer. And I was still getting paid a salary while I was traveling. And all I was doing, like I was still working, but I had generated a bunch of content before I left, and I just scheduled out that content for all the lenders within the firm. So I was still doing my job, but I was in Europe. Once I realized that I could run social media and not even be there and be literally in Rome at the Colosseum or be in Greece or be in Paris, I was like, dude, why don't I just do this for not only my firm, but for all these other firms that probably need the same thing?
Did you create a business doing managing social media?
So when I got back from Europe, I was still working for the firm and I was still creating content, doing all that stuff. And then basically I started working with my boy Matt Hamilton. Shout out Matt. He was like one of my only homeboys that I knew with a camera. So he pulled up and we would just basically leverage the office space, shoot videos, like where we had this big whiteboard in the conference room and Matt would pull up and we would just shoot videos on like how to build a personal brand, like how to the 5 keys to building a personal brand. And we were thinking that we were just going to build a course and then sell that course on personal branding. But then what happened was once I started putting out that content, some guys reached out to me and were like, yo, we have an agency in Raleigh and this is literally what we do. And we're already successful. We already have a client base. We're already working with real estate firms, restaurants, all these businesses. Yo, you should come on board and help us with sales. I ended up joining that team. It was called Avail Consultants. And my first client that I signed working with Avail Consultants was the mortgage firm that I worked at while I was still working there. So it was just like, and then from there, it got to a point where I was spending so much time trying to, because I got my first apartment at this point in Raleigh. I was living by myself. And I got to a point where I was like, shit, like, I just want to be an entrepreneur again. Like maybe this is like what I'm meant to be doing, because I had already had experience building Ryder brand. So I knew what it took to build a brand in a way. And I had already been doing social media management for all the lenders at my firm for the past 6 months. And I was able to get paid a monthly salary and be able to travel overseas for 2 months and still make money. So I'm like, well, if I can do this in Europe, I can do this here. I joined with them. We started closing clients and then I started doing that full time with them. You're muted right now.
Getting back into like a sales type role. So were you creating content or were you getting clients to come on board, or a little bit of both?
It was a little bit of both. So that was like the first time, that was when like cold calling was introduced to me. 2 of the guys that I worked with at Avail are still 2 of my best friends to this day, Beckett Fusick and Trent Wilson. Trent actually works with me at the company that I'm with now. And then me and Beckett went on to do something on our own. But that was the first time that like someone handed me a list of leads and was like, yo, here's the script, call all these people and say this. That's what I did. And basically our offer was, we had creative services in the house. So basically we would call these local businesses and be like, hey, we want to come shoot a free video for you. We will pull up, shoot a video for them, and then give them the video on a meeting and be like, yo, we can keep doing this for you and we can leverage this video as ads to drive more foot traffic into your business. I was doing that. I was selling that, but I was also creating content and building my personal brand as a kind of like personal brand marketing, digital marketing expert as well.
Word. So I'm already seeing, like, given where you are today, starting with rubber bands and fashion, entrepreneurial, like you said, you get bored with things easily. So tried to hand in school, even before like getting into the tech sales piece, like you were already dabbling as a salesperson, learning the ins and outs of sales from experience, all while too trying different things, figuring out what's working for you, but still also keeping this entrepreneurial hustle at the forefront at all times, right? So at that point in the journey, when you get on board with this, what would we call this, a advertising company, a social media
advertising agency, like a digital marketing company.
How long did you stay there?
I was there for a year. It was a bunch of young guys, right? And like we all had egos, we all had different things that we were good at. And unfortunately, the leader of the organization at the time, the CEO, right, just kind of, he was young. he had to try and run the business and like manage other people. That wasn't his strong suit. He was an introvert and like dealing with a bunch of extroverts, and it just didn't work. So eventually everybody left and it ended up just being me and him. And then due to some kind of shady that happened that was spearheaded by him, it just kind of pushed me to start my own agency.
Doing similar work with
Doing the exact same thing. But at this point, mind you, to be transparent, like, and I mean, if the guy is, I'm not going to say his name, but if the guy's watching this, man, like, I don't have any beef or no disrespect, just telling my story. But it got to the point where like I was literally, because there were 7 guys at first, right? And then it went down to 4, and then it went down to 2. And when it went down to 2, I was essentially the one that was like building the brand. Like I was making all the content. I was doing everything to keep the business afloat. And I only had 20% of the company. So this guy's getting 80% and I'm generating everything. So at this point, I'm putting in all this work and getting pretty much scraps. It kind of just got to the point where I had all the relationships with our clients. A lot of our clients didn't even know this guy existed, right? So once that shady happened and went down, then I was just like, you know what, dude, like I'm out. Like I moved out. We were living together at the time. I moved out and I leveraged a lot. Like basically I bought all of our assets that we had from him and just rebranded everything to my own agency. And because I was the one who had all the relationships with the clients, I pretty much just sent them all a letter and I was like, yo, I'm no longer operating under this organization. I'm starting my own company, Ryder Media Group. I'm still offering the same services. I still have the same service providers and we can continue as to the standard program, but it's just not going to be under this name anymore. So I sent a letter to all those clients. We had like maybe 7 or 8 clients at the time. 3 of them were like, nah, it's okay. Like we're going to go work with a larger firm. And then 5 of them ended up staying with me. So now I have my own book of business and I'm operating an agency by myself. And I had a creative director / like videographer, Mark Cooper, that I was working with. And I had one other teammate as well that kind of helped out with like some administrative stuff. That was when I made my first 5 figures in a month.
Word. You started your own agency, but ultimately you got back into the organizational structure at some point. What pivoted you to the world of tech sales? Seeing how you established your own agency, what made you shift?
What happened was kind of got to a point with the agency where like, again, it was called Ryder Media Group. So in a lot of our assets, I'm working with people on my team, but in a way, they're just kind of like glorified contractors, right? So I'm really the only person that's talking to the clients, dealing with the clients. So I'm competing with like these bigger digital marketing firms. Because mind you, I'm going for like big companies, like big real estate organizations. So I'm competing with Centerline Digital, whatever. I'm not going to say all these names, but just bigger agencies. It kind of got to a point. This was right around when COVID hit too. So I'm trying to operate an agency by myself, competing with other people that have a bigger track record than me, that have a better resume than me, that have more connections than me. And I'm trying to convince these bigger companies that I can give them the same results that these larger firms can. So when COVID came and the budgets got tight, people were just kind of like, yo, like we need to work with this firm because we believe that this firm can give us a quicker return on investment than you can. And it wasn't because I wasn't providing value. It was just because I wasn't as good of a salesman, or I didn't have a big enough team, or I didn't have the logos that these other companies did. So when that happened, I recognized the trend and I saw that like some clients were starting to leave. I had to lower my prices because people were starting to charge less, and they were able to do that because they have more clients, and I couldn't afford that because a lot of my service offerings were production based. I had to not only pay my videographer, my creative director, and spend the ad budget to run ads, but I also had to profit as well and feed myself and keep food on the table. Just the margins got too slim. One of my homeboys reached out to me, Marcus Marshall. That's like my dog, who I knew since middle school. That's like my best friend still to this day. He reached out to me because I called him and I was like, bro, he had started working in tech sales. He had been playing in the league up until that point. He pivoted out of the league, got into tech. So he was like, yo, like, I'm working for this tech company, like, da-da-da-da. Like, I don't think you need a college degree. Like, I can refer you and I can get you an interview and maybe you can make a salary. You can get back on your feet and start to build again. Again, just like everything else, I took that opportunity. But mind you, my resume was solely entrepreneurial venture, except for the mortgage. So I already came into that like trying to prove a point. Like everybody else had degrees for the most part. I'm like, yo, nah, like I can do this. Like I ran an agency by myself, but I'm in entrepreneur mode. I'm used to waking up at 10, 11 o'clock, controlling my schedule, making calls whenever I feel like it. I'm running the show. So then to go from that to then becoming a BDR, which is essentially like an entry-level sales role where I've got to clock in at 7:30 in the morning, make a certain amount of calls all day, send a certain amount of emails, and report to my manager once a day. It was just kind of like, I was good at it, but I wasn't mature enough. And that ego had kind of built back up again to where I wasn't quite ready for that role.
Shout out to Marcus. I know Marcus. And if I'm reading this right, this is around the time we crossed paths in terms of me meeting you. That was your first experience at a tech company?
Yeah, and we met, I remember the day we met. We met at Briar Creek Beer Garden, and you were working in sales enablement. And I remember when I was onboarding, you gave us like the course on Sales Loft, and you were teaching us all these things, how to reach out, how to prospect, how to, do pre-call discovery and understand the prospects when you're calling them. I remember you. Like, I remember the day we met, and you remember me. Like, you remember how I was and how I was moving. Like, I was the type of dude, like, I would walk straight up to the boss. Because in corporate,
you would.
like for real, like
yeah, you would. That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah,
you would.
in corporate America, depending on the organization you're at, because there's startups, scale ups, and then there's like, mid-market and enterprise organizations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So depending on the size of the organization, like everybody is not cool with like hanging out with the people at the bottom of the totem pole. At the organization that I'm at right now, it's a lot more fluid of like my desk at my office in New York is right next to my CRO. So we have conversations all the time. But when I was at the previous company, it wasn't really like that. It was kind of like, all right, you guys are over here. You've got your manager here. And then the other guy and the other guy above him are kind of out of the way. Like you don't really talk to those guys. But I was the type of dude, because I'm big entrepreneur. I'm like, yo, I ran my own business. I'm cool as hell. I do what I want. I would go straight up to the boss and be like, yo, let's take a shot. Like I didn't really give a shit. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't really the role that I was in. You know what I'm saying? So good.
Oh man. That's funny. That's funny to like. I think so. My first experience in tech sales, I was 30 already. Mm-hmm. And I always say if I had that same role at 25 or younger, I wouldn't have had the success, because there is just a certain approach that's needed to lock in these environments to be successful. But like you describe it as not mature enough. Like, when did the light bulb go off for you personally, where you kind of took a step back and was like, you know what, I'm maybe gonna try some stuff different than how I've done it previously?
Well, I lost that job because what happened was I was good at my role. You could probably vouch. Like I was one of the top reps at the time, but the problem was I wasn't organized and I did non-conventionally. Like everybody else, we were graded based on how well we could follow the script essentially and address certain points and keep things super professional. Now, mind you, this industry is cybersecurity. So the people that you're talking to in cybersecurity versus the organization I work for now, which is I'm speaking to marketers. So they're a lot more hip. They're a lot more cool. The conversation flows a lot smoother. I'm talking to people that went to school for IT that play video games. So I'm calling them. I'm like, hey, what's going on? It's Sebastian from da-da-da-da and XYZ. And so my manager is like, yo, like you gotta like, you know what I'm saying? Button it up a little bit more, keep it more crisp. And, I didn't really understand that, right? We went to the company event It was like the Christmas party of the event. Everybody was having fun. We were having a great time. I had a little too much fun, stayed out too late, and ended up sleeping in. And that day, because mind you, I had already gotten in trouble for, I don't even know what I got in trouble for. I think it was like, I don't know, like maybe it was, I don't know, maybe I said the wrong thing or whatever, overstepped. So I had already gotten in trouble one time. So then this time it was like, nah, like this guy, we already been looking for a reason to let him go. Like he doesn't really fit the culture like that. He's done. So mind you, at this point, because I've been living with my mom after I left my last spot, I was in between spots. I was staying with my mom. So in tech sales, you make pretty good money. But I'm thinking, okay, cool. Like I got stability here. So I'm making good money, but I'm spending it. Like I'm getting the flyest drip. Like I'm doing everything that I can and going out and drinking and doing XYZ every weekend. So then I ended up getting my own crib, and me and Marcus were roommates. And I ended up living with one of my other homeboys as well from Avail, Beckett. Literally, I moved into this crib on November 31st, and I got fired from that job on December 7th. So, and mind you, I didn't really have like bread saved because I'm making money, I'm spending money. Like, because in the agency space, it's cash flow. Like, all it takes is one client for you to get $5,000-$6,000 for 90 days. So I'm coming from that. So the corporate joint, me getting paid every 2 weeks, a couple $1,000s, I'm like, yo, I'm good. But then when I lost my job, there was no severance. There was no like, all right, bet. Well, you're gonna keep getting paid here. It's like, nah, like you're gonna get paid for what you made here for these 7 days, and then that's it. So mind you, I have my own crib now. I've got bills to pay, and I've got roommates that are my homeboys. So I'm not about to just be walking around like sitting on my ass, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I gotta bring what I gotta bring to the table. Yeah, man, that was kind of like my rock bottom, bro. Like the whole story leading up to this, like everything was like, regardless of whether it was a lateral or a vertical step, everything was a step in the right direction, right? In some way, shape, or form. But when I lost that job, that was when like I really was humbled. Like this is really the real world, because now I got bills. I bought a car, so now I got a car payment, and this is my first time ever really having like substantial bills. So when I lost my job, dude, I was dead broke. Now, mind you, my dad, his hot season was like November, December. So basically, once I got fired, I was so embarrassed to let my parents know that I had gotten fired. And especially the way that I got fired too. Like my mom is like super high up senior director in corporate America for a huge pharmaceutical firm. She was so happy for me to have that job. And when I lost that job, I was so embarrassed to tell him. So yeah, I just had to do events with my dad, like going back to what I've been doing all throughout my teenage years. I made a decent amount of money, enough to like hold me over, but I'm talking like hold me over, like I pay my bills and then I'm eating like ramen noodles and like, you know what I'm saying? Just living like however, not living in the way that I want to, but living in the way that I have to for a couple months. And then I got another opportunity.
This a lot that I appreciate you sharing that story. And honestly, I did not know that's why you left. I did not know that. Just I had no clue. And a couple of things, but mainly when you are selling, knowing your audience and making sure you communicate to your audience is so key. Is something I want to emphasize here, because like as you said, a lot of people hear about quote unquote tech sales, but that word tech doesn't really describe what you're doing or what industry you're in. Tech is not really, I know they refer to tech as an industry, but tech in itself is not really an industry, because under tech, we have cybersecurity, for example, we have sales and marketing, we have finance, we have healthcare. All these industries have tech elements, right? And have companies that fall under that. And being able to identify who you're communicating with, how you need to then communicate that message goes a long way. And the nuance of who you're talking to and how a message will land, like the comparison you made of talking to, say, cybersecurity people versus marketers is like a great example of you can have a great approach in one way, and then when you translate it to the other audience, it does not land in the same way whatsoever. So that is a big thing. I think when you're selling, do you know your audience? And then do you have the ability to really communicate in a way that's going to be tailored to them? Not necessarily based off you, but based off of them. And the other piece to that is, like, I gotta applaud I don't know what it's called, but I guess it's the hustle, because living in the triangle, especially, this is one of the most educated parts of America there is. It is difficult, even when you have a college degree, to get an opportunity like that. Yeah. If I'm being honest. And the fact that you had the whatever within to stay motivated, like you said, keep taking steps, even if they're whatever the step is, they're leading you to something, right? Like one step to the next. The fact that you were able to get to that point in itself, I think should be highlighted, because when you're a young Black male and for whatever the reason, you make it out of, say, your teens and you don't get criminalized, that's already a win. And then if you don't finish school, even when you have a quote unquote degree, you have all this debt, you have all this other stuff to overcome. Like you're still fighting different battles. But when you don't have that degree, I know, talking to folks, friends, family who don't have that, it makes it even more difficult to do what you're saying here. Yeah. Real bills, real life's coming. And now you got to start to acknowledge the reality of your decisions at a point in time and say, okay, this is where I am. This is how life is like smacking me in the face. What am I going to do next to get to the next level? And I got to applaud, man, the fact that you stay making those moves. Yeah. Because it's a journey. Like Nipsey said, it's a marathon, man. So you can never really it's always a next step. And as long as you're here, breathing, putting in the work, you're preparing for something that's on the other side of that. So the fact that you were able to get to that role, learn from that role, like you said, quote unquote, hit your rock bottom, but where you are today, like you said, different opportunity, new company. Was this new opportunity also based off a relationship, or how did you bounce back from that rock bottom and continue on in this world of tech?
Yeah, man. And by the way, like, I'm looking at the time right now. Like, I've never given like a tell-all like this. So we have time, right? Like we can just chop it up, right? Or do you have
Yeah, we got time. As a matter of fact, maybe in about 15 minutes, we might take a 5-minute bathroom break, so then we can come back and then wrap things up. But we'll see how the conversation goes. But we definitely got plenty of time here to keep going.
Word. Cool. Just wanted to check real quick. That's a sales step too. Just check on time, make sure we're good, no hard stops. It really, everything that you just said was really, that's when all that hit me, right? Because mind you, like I call them failures now, because in the moment, Ryder brand, I call that a failure just because people have this negative connotation with like the word failing and losing, right? Like I hate to lose. I hate to lose more than I love to win. You know what I'm saying?
The same way.
My relationship with failing has gotten so much better, like through just being in sales and through just like saying fuck it so many times and just like taking risk and doing different things. But when I got to that point, I was like, yo, I started these businesses. I became, I partnered with these guys. This didn't work. I started this business. It didn't really work long term. I did this agency. It worked for a little while. And then I was kind of forced out by market conditions. And then now I get an opportunity to have like a real job, and I got fired from it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, this is when the whole degree thing started to like really like make me feel like, like, am I going to fail? Like I was really down bad for that period of time. What happened was my homeboy, Gideon, shout out Gideon. That's my dog. So he was in tech sales at this point, right? Really like a lot of my homeboys were in tech sales, but he had originally gotten his start at a company called RevGen, which is pretty much like a sales incubator, but it's a company that basically it outsources SDRs, in-house SDRs, to small to medium-sized businesses that don't necessarily want to hire their own business development team. So They leverage RevGen, and the reps that work at RevGen make calls for these companies, right? And book demos for them. but it's a really, really renowned and great program because they've got so many connections in the startup and scale up space that if you come through RevGen and you graduate from RevGen, you're like, I think somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's like a 90% placement. Like if you graduate from RevGen in 4 months, some people it takes them 5, some people it takes them 6. But if you graduate in 4 months with like recommendations from the directors that work there, dude, you can get a job right after graduating. My boy Gideon hit me up and he was like, yo, bro, like I know, whatever happened with the job, you should do RevGen. And I talked to also Malcolm as well, who you know.
Shout
And
out Malcolm.
Malcolm was introduced to me through Marcus. So I called him and I was like, dude, because I had to restructure my resume because I'm like, dude, like I've never really been like fired like this before. Like I don't know how to, like, what do I say on my resume? What do I say in an interview? So he helped me craft my resume. He helped me get prepared for that. And he was like, dude, him and Gideon were like, yo, do RevGen, bro. Like you're not going to make a lot of money for a couple months, but dude, if you graduate that program, you'll be able to get another tech job. I'm like, all right, it's kind of like a fresh start kind of thing. So I apply and I knew a few people that already worked there and I knew one of the managers, shout out Evan Porter. I went through my interview and they were basically like, yeah, like you got it. You know what I'm saying? So RevGen, if anybody knows about RevGen, you pull up, you make 110 cold calls every single day from 8:30 to 5:30 p.m. And you have a quota that you have to hit. And if you don't hit that quota 2 months in a row, you're out of there. You know what I'm saying? Nobody is there to around or play around. This is serious. So I go in and I crush it, dude. I graduate in 4 months. I make great relationships with people there. I met my favorite woman in the world at RevGen. And so much, that was probably RevGen. Despite everything that I've told you today, RevGen was definitely the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I went through that program. I graduated and I was able to get a job literally right out of that. And that was with the organization that I'm with right now. And I've been with this organization now for over a year, almost a year and a half. I'm killing here. Last quarter, I had a hand in over $200,000 in new business generated for the organization in one quarter. So I've been doing my thing. I'm still in the tech space, and I moved to New Jersey in February of this year, 2023. Man, it's just been up from here.
Word. So you went into that RevGen opportunity different than you went into prior opportunities. Different mindset, different approach. Just
dude.
And you saw the difference in the results and the outcome as well. Would you agree there as well?
Yeah, because dude, like I was like dead broke. Like when I started it, dude, I'm serious. Like I literally took a video my first day at RevGen. My gas tank was on E, and I think I had like negative $14 in my bank account, bro, in my checking. Like I had a little bit of money in savings, but I don't really count that. But dude, like in my checking account, I had negative $14, bro. That was like rock bottom for me. I'm talking, I took a selfie video in my car, showed the car on E, and told the camera how much was in my bank account. And then I showed the front of RevGen, and I was like, well, this is the first day of the rest of my life. And I went in there, man. I put my head down. I'm a social guy, so I made friends in there. But dude, like it was business for me. I wasn't around. I showed up on time every single day. I added value to the other people that I could. When I had time and when I had the opportunity to learn from people, I learned from them. And I just went in and did my job, bro. And because it was either do that or you're not going to be able to do else. Yeah. So I went in, I did my thing, got this opportunity, man. And I was so grateful for it. And I was so blessed. And now I'm in the space. I'm probably in the best space I've ever been in my life. Like right now, you know what I'm saying? Because of RevGen and because of the organization that I work for right now. And because of all these opportunities and every step along the way that has gotten me to this point.
So this is a great story for many reasons. And I just want to highlight because I've talked about professional sales, but more so from a point of it's not just under, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the world of professional sales is under advertised in our community. Like, I didn't even know what software sales was or professional sales. Is always typically this idea of cars or similar to Sam's Club. It's perceived at a certain level. But in this quote unquote world of tech sales, people make similar salaries as the same as those lawyers, doctors, professionals. There are opportunities in this arena. And I think a lot of young folks like yourself who have this natural instinct to hustle, like whether it's natural or whether it's nature, you learn it as a young black male, a lot of us.
You have
And
to.
oftentimes by force. And little do we know that these conditions are sharpening a skill set that we can take advantage of in a professional sales setting. And now, granted, I admit, you admit, being mature enough to take advantage of an opportunity is a different conversation. But having a skill set to take advantage of it, same thing like going to the league. A lot of folks got the talent to go to the league, but do you got the maturity to train like a professional? Show up every day, do all the things necessary. The same is very much true in the corporate world as well. It's like a lot of us have the talent, but the discipline to make sure we do what's necessary to get what we need so that we can live the lives we want to live. Like, and you've been able to hit your rock bottom, bounce back, and still pursue the creative endeavors, still build brands, find ways, and dyed his hair, tatted up, still being himself, barbed wire, everything, but you exist in the corporate space and you found success. Like, how do you personally try to balance how you feel as an artist and just expressing your fashion, just that itch to create from a fashion perspective, from a content perspective as an artist, while being this corporate professional who has to show up in a certain way too at work? You know what I mean? Like, how do you balance those two things?
Yeah, we ain't even talk about the music, but I put out an album in 2022 called Seventh Heaven, and I put out an EP before that called Karma. So if you want to go check that out, go check that out. And that kind of leads into my creative ventures now, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But to answer that question, man, like, dude, at the end of the day, like, one of the best pieces of advice actually that I got from my CRO right now, and I'm gonna shout him out, man. My dog Caesar Chevalier, one of the realest dudes I've ever met, and great at his role, commands respect in his role. Black man in a C-suite position. Him and I are the only, you know what I'm saying, people that look like us really at the organization. So I always take any opportunity that I can to learn from him. And one of the best pieces of advice that he ever gave me, we were actually talking about LinkedIn and building a personal brand on LinkedIn. And I told him, I was like, yo, Caesar, like, I am different. Like, I make music, I do clothes, like, I don't look like everybody else here. Like, how can I be successful in this role and balance both? And he was like, dude, like, because he probably gets tired of me always saying to him, like, yo, like, trying to find the relation, like, yo, brother, like, yo, help me out, man. Like, how did you do it? He just told me, he was like, dude, like, just be yourself, man. Like, at the end of the day, like, you just need to be yourself. That's why you're able to be where you are. Like, you don't come to work. Like, I will never tell you, like, yo, don't be yourself here. The only time he's ever really had to check me, I wore a sweatsuit. We were on we were on the offsite. We were at an offsite in Denver. I wore a Fear of God sweatsuit to a meeting at an offsite, and that was the only time where I kind of got the look from him, where he was like, "All right, bro, like,
We in front of company now. You got to look the part. When you in front of company, it's a little different than when you in the house.
Like, don't stretch it. Like, this is an offsite, you know." But other than that, man, he just was like, dude, like, be yourself, man. Like, nobody here is going to judge you. Like, you come in, you do your job, you handle business, you're adding value to the organization. And if you add value to the organization and you're here for a good purpose and you don't rub people the wrong way and you don't make people feel uncomfortable and you don't, like, just walk in and just start talking about all your other shit, like, and you just keep a balance but still be who you are, like, that's how you become successful. And that's how you become successful, doing things that you actually care about. Because if you wake up every single day and you have to be somebody else, you're going to get to a point in your life where the real you is going to be like, knocking at you like, yo, you like haven't been me for 30 years, 25 years. Like, what are we doing? And that's when people get depressed and have midlife crises because they realize like, I'm not even doing what I want to be doing. For me, like, I just think honestly, again, like risk aversion, or not risk aversion, but risk tolerance from a standpoint of like, okay, bet, like, yeah, I'm going to be myself. Like, I'm not going to try to change who I am for the sake of $1. I'm never going to do that. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you have to understand, like you said, you have to be able to read the room and understand where you are. I'm not going to wear a barbed wire chain and have a hat on and wear all my jewelry at church. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wear a long sleeve shirt, maybe a button down, some slacks, and put myself together because I'm at church. You know what I'm saying? It's not the same. We have to understand that we have to learn how to operate in different spaces. It doesn't mean that we can't be ourselves, but it just means that sometimes we got to understand where we're at and where we want to be.
Some rooms require a uniform at the
And
end
it
of the
helps
day.
if you're good at your job too. It helps if you're good at your job.
I compare it to, so I grew up in the 90s as a Cowboys fan, and Jimmy Johnson was the coach, and he would talk about how, look, Michael Irvin is Michael Irvin. Everybody else is everybody else. Like, Michael Irvin can do what he want. Everybody else gonna have to do what I say because that's the hierarchy. And when you are good at what you do, people will typically work with you in a way that is a bit more flexible when you're adding value, when they see you as an asset versus when they see you as somebody who's just filling a role or dead weight, right? So 1,000%. I think
Because
this is a good, go ahead.
Last point I want to say, and then I know you want to take a quick break, but also, and I say all that to say, I don't say that from like an arrogant perspective at all, but also when you are different and you have edge and you do like prioritize your aesthetic and, you know what I'm saying? Like you look different and you draw a little bit more attention than maybe somebody else. Like you have to be able to like, you don't want to be that guy who shows up to the game with all the tights and the armbands and the headband and then get in the game and shoot airball threes. You don't want to be that guy. And that goes for football, basketball, tech sales, really anything, right? Like you don't want to like draw too much attention to yourself if you're not going to be like, you got to be able to back it up. The goal of looking good is to feel good. And then when you feel good, you play good. If you look good and you play like shit, like you're prioritizing the wrong things. So don't lose sight of the main thing.
That's 1,000%. You can't, it's not about looking the part. It's about being the part 1,000%.
Right.
And before we dive into the current creative things you got going on, I think it's a good moment to take a 2-3 minute break. Cool. We'll pause for a moment. I'll play a little background music here, and then we'll come back in like 2-3 minutes and pick up the conversation. So for those of y'all listening, we appreciate y'all. Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you got questions, we'll ask them when we get back. Otherwise, man, y'all enjoy the tunes here in the short term. We'll be back in like 2-3 minutes. Bet. Oh. All right, we'll be back here. If you need to use a restroom, you want to chill here, you gonna step away, what you gonna do?
I'm gonna go get some more juice.
Bet.
And then,
all right, we'll be back in a few. Smoked up on a cloud, headed to my destination. I don't need no explanation. Do what I want, no hesitations. Fresh, no expiration. Get in mind, exclamation. Hot, out here getting checks. Out in Nairobi, I was smoking the best. Heard lines wrong when I exhaled. Had to sit back, think and relax. This is no story, no, this is a fact. Don't know where I'm talking, go look at a map, and you will see life is much more than just on TV. Life is some lessons and counting your blessings. We all can do better, I'm spreading the message.
We've been disconnected, no straight lines on this roller coaster ride. Slow down, we all been feeling tired. So now I live it live, but I'm dying to know what I know inside. Slow it down, take it slow. We gon' roll up, we gon' smoke, we gon' go up in the crowd. You don't don't smoke, we gon' go up in the cloud. You don't know us, slow it down.
Slow it down.
Pole bana.
Revolution it. It's not on TV, not on your phone. Just look up real quick.
Nitakuwa free.
That's your
Word up. Say what?
that's your music?
Oh yeah, High Flyer the Most High. Last album I put out probably 2020. What is this? That was COVID. That was probably 2020. September 2020, actually, I dropped that. So about 3 years ago at this point. But that was the last full-length original I put out, High Flyer the Most High. Actually leads to how I started this podcast. But that's like a whole other conversation. But yeah, definitely check that out. I like yourself, background in making music artistically and then just following those passions throughout.
Dope. That's what's up, man.
Word, appreciate it. So appreciate y'all sticking with us.
Yeah.
And appreciate you, man, just for sharing the story, man. What just the journey from getting from one place to the next. One of the reasons why I have this podcast is because I want to bring reality back to social media, just back to media in general. I think way too often we normalize things that aren't normal. We normalize the glitz, the glamour. We don't talk about the dips when we hit rock bottom, when we have to overcome adversities. We don't necessarily talk about these things as much. But on this podcast, the G podcast, that's what we focus on, real shit. That's why we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and future. Because when you listen to this, the hope is you have something that maybe a gem, a jewel, something, a tool you take away and apply it to your own situation so that you can improve dynamics, whether that be between family members. And I got to highlight here, just as I go through this, like I'm hearing this from the outside in, but the influence of your father playing a huge role in your development is, I don't think, can be understated. Just the importance of having that father figure and him showing you exposing you to certain things, certain rooms that otherwise maybe you wouldn't have had access to, and how that influenced you long term. The relationships, the friendships that you built over that time that help open doors from that standpoint. We talked about the realities of just what life is like, having to deal with those finances, deal with life and what that becomes. And ultimately, you've used your freedom not just to build businesses, but also to create things as an artist. And a lot of your creations, I would imagine, you see them as assets to help you in the future. Things that'll help establish some pillars, some breadcrumbs that you can build on so that your future, all of us go to work, we work for something, but I'm sure that the tech career is to help you set up something even outside of that for yourself, like Seventh Eye Club. So let's talk about some of these creative passions you got going on now.
And also, man, like Pops definitely played a huge role. My mom played a huge role as well. And so I just want to, I don't want that to fall to the wayside. I have great parents, very supportive parents, definitely try to keep me on a straight and narrow path, right? But once they realize that, like, hey, like my risk tolerance is high and I'm just going to try, they just learn to support me and, give me constructive criticism and feedback and be very supportive. So my parents definitely played a huge role. And I think that ties directly into creative ventures, right? I think as a creative, right, like you said, bringing reality to social media, right? Like, I think a lot of times, right, like as a creative, the reality of the world is that you have to generate income. Like you have to be able to pay bills. If you want to live a good life, you have to be able to generate. A lot of times, just like the greatest artists Vincent van Gogh, Basquiat, Picasso, whoever else, right? A lot of these artists, when they were alive, like they were underappreciated. You know what I'm saying? Like people rocked with them, but they don't really get relevance until they die. And
The
so
Van Gogh story is nuts too. I've been to the museum in Amsterdam and did the whole tour, and I read up on his history. Like his story in particular is very interesting in terms of how he was perceived when he was alive versus how his art appreciated when he was gone.
yeah, and that's where my artist name Ryder Van Gogh came from. Huge inspiration from Vincent. I've never cut my ear off and sent it to somebody, but I definitely love, right? So, but the perspective is from a creativity standpoint, man. I mean, music has always been like a huge part of my life, and it's always been a big influence to me as well, especially hip hop. And not necessarily like the shoot 'em up, bang bang. Like I'm not a gangster, like I'm not a thug by any means, but it's more just like the expression and just kind of that like I don't give a kind of vibe. And I definitely give a right? But still to like see other people and watch how they move. Sometimes it's interesting to just see that perspective, and it definitely affects a little bit the way that I think and the way that I go about my stuff. But creatively, man, like we can kind of we talked a lot about corporate sales for a while, and then I mentioned Ryder brand, and that was my first creative project. Ryder Media Group was a creative agency, so our lead service provision was media production. So we did like brand story videos for organizations. We worked with real estate agents, lawyers, clothing brands. Get into modern times, man. Like when I moved up to New York, I knew that I wanted to continue with the creativity. I knew that I was doing a really good job in my role right now, or in my role at the organization I'm at. I was able to save up and got into a position where I could invest in myself. Seventh Eye Club, like we mentioned earlier, I learned a lot with Ryder brand, right? Like I learned a lot, and I learned a lot of lessons, and I learned a lot of things that could apply to future endeavors. Seventh Eye Club, man, like it started off as an idea of, hey, like I want to build a community of people want some sort of like mystique, that want some sort of like club where they can be express themselves through fashion and through aesthetics and appearance, but also be able to meet with people that support that brand and be able to share similar values and mindset. So that was the original idea of it, right? And then as the ethos evolved, it became more, and I'm not going to get into like the intricacies of like what I plan to do with the brand. That ethos has definitely evolved, and it got into more of like a spiritual kind of realm and vibe. Like we all have five senses: hearing, seeing, feeling, smelling, tasting. And then if you have any sort of like spiritual inclination, you know that our sixth sense is our third eye, right? The seventh eye was something that was created to pretty much add a sense to the universe and the energy around us, right? That is hidden in plain sight, that we all feel, but we might not see it, right? Like some people say they can see auras, but most people can't. But you're drawn to people for a reason. There's some people that repulse you, and then there's some people that's like, damn, this person's interesting, I want to continue a conversation. And there's opportunities and things that happen that are not, sometimes you feel like, hey, like it feels ordained, and that's because energy. The seventh eye is just the energetic force that draws everybody together. And the club was added as a way to kind of play on that original idea of creating a community. So the people that support the brand, the people that come to the events when we do throw the events, those are people that are members, right? Members of the club. So it's not like some weird there's meaning to it, and we're still in the we're still in the early stages of developing the ethos. And I think that's the biggest part of the brand is, you know, like my shirts are the same quality as a high-end luxury clothing brand, where it's the same, we use the same blanks, it's the same weight, maybe even heavier than a lot of these brands. But the reason why people pay hot dollar for those brands is because of the placement, and because of the brand, and because of the connection to what
The
that brand,
value.
the value of it, right? Is
Yeah.
LeBron James wearing it? Is Stephon Diggs, is Gunna, Young Thug, Drake, are they wearing it? That's what makes it cool. In order to get people to buy in, you got to have a dope brand to it. And that's also what stands the test of time and allows you to evolve. It's deeper than the tees. So that's Seventh Eye Club. I got deep into that. But the artist platform, right, Cut Different TV is under the umbrella of Cut Different Enterprises, which I have with one other partner and a silent investor. And essentially what Cut Different Enterprises is, man, we're a media organization, media company. Cut Different TV is our flagship platform for artists to be able to come on, do interviews. I host the show, I host the interviews. We do live performances and we do interactive segments as well. And the goal is essentially to provide a platform that like bridges the gap for independent artists that don't necessarily, they don't have the connections to maybe get on these industry platforms, but they still want to spread their message and connect deeper with their fans. We also we have a podcast studio under Cut Different Enterprises called Cut Different Studios. And then under Cut Different Studios as well, we also have a recording studio and we're offering production and media services as well. So with that, that's kind of like how I'm spending my time. And then I've got a podcast as well called Thoughts by Ryder, where like I just have dope people on and just chop it up and just talk about the thoughts and ideologies that they have that contributes to their creative success. So in a way, man, it's just, I'm just living life. I'm having fun, just lifestyle businesses, man.
Word. And like one of the things you pointed out earlier was that you get bored easily doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
A city like the city, the Big Apple, New York City.
Not the little one.
Any chance you'll get bored with New York City?
Dude, I don't know, man. It's honest. I mean, I'm in Jersey, so I'm like right across the Hudson. I said that already in the beginning, but a lot of people here,
it's still the city. Like you right there. You right there.
Yeah, it's basically New Jersey. It's basically New York. And I spend a lot of time in the city. It's hard, man, because the thing about New York is like you never know I could go to the city tonight and meet somebody and that person changes my life because maybe they're just coming here to visit, right? Like, and they're just here checking it out. The biggest tourism place in the entire country. You know what I'm saying? So you go to New York, you might run into somebody from China. You might run into somebody from France, from whatever. But it's hard to get bored in an environment like that because there's always different people. There's always new people. And when you live here, you kind of have the foundation of like what you have going on. But dude, I met P. Diddy like 3 weeks ago, just out going to dinner at Nobu. Like you never know what you can run into. So I don't think I could get bored. I think that I don't see myself living here for the rest of my life, but I definitely see the opportunity. It's a higher creative ceiling than in Raleigh. The collaboration here is a lot, like the collaborative mindset is a lot more forward because so many people have made it out of New York, obviously. So nobody's really fighting to be the first. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of just like people are starting to understand that you grow together and community is important. So it's easy to find like-minded people that share similar values that are willing to add value. And it makes it easy to form those relationships that could be the relationship that changes your perspective. I met my business partner, Vic, Cut Different TV and Cut Different Enterprises, my business partner in that. I was having an inspection at my apartment. I went down the block just to grab a coffee, like just waiting for everything to settle down so I could come back in. I met dude, and in the back of the space was a podcast set up. So I'm like, yo, y'all do podcasts? Mind you, I'm taking a sales call. So I come out, he's like, yeah, we do podcasts. We do all that here. And I'm like, yo, I want to shoot my podcast here. I broke bread with him the same day that I met him. And 3 weeks later, we ended up becoming business partners and starting this. And that's the energy in New York. That doesn't happen in Raleigh because in Raleigh, everybody is trying to be the first. So they're gatekeeping. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like everybody wants to be the first big artist. Everybody wants to be the first big designer. Everybody wants to be the influencer that everybody knows. And Raleigh doesn't really have anybody like that. So I get it, but you kind of reach a certain point in a space like that where I want to grow. I don't want to sit around and be gatekeeping and playing crabs in a barrel with people.
Word. Yo, so, and you said podcast studio, recording studio. Where are these joints located?
Jersey City. Again, right across the Hudson, man.
If I'm in the New York area and I'm trying to link with you, use your studio, leverage your services, how can people find these things? Because I'm sure there are plenty of people in the New York, New Jersey area looking for places to create content, whether that be podcasts, recording, and you offer other services, like how would they even find or become aware of these things?
Yeah, it's a wonderful market fit, man. Like you said, a lot of competition with creative spaces. People can find us. We're still relatively new. So we launched the business in August. And prior to that, we were still kind of starting Cut Different TV. You can follow us on social media at Cut Different TV. You can follow me at Ryder Van Gogh on all platforms. Reach out to me, shoot me a DM. Like, I'd be happy to give you insight. And then we're about to start running some advertising campaigns as well. Put together some partnerships that we've been working on that can help us with a little bit more promotion and spread the word. Right now, a lot of our business is coming from events that we're going to, kind of wearing that A&R hat, pulling up to showcases, which is another great thing about New York. There's always some sort of artist showcase or concert going on. We're able to meet a lot of people, meet managers, meet artists, and kind of just leverage that network to get people in and out. Also, a lot of walk-in business too. But
word, like you said, New York, a lot of opportunities out there meeting artists. Between the clothing brand, Seventh Eye Club, or clothing brand of I guess just the brand in itself, and between what you got going on with the podcast, like
and the tech sales job,
and the tech, like we already talked about, like sort of balancing the tech and the creative, but just on the creative side alone, there seems to be like music that led to where you are now. Like, creatively speaking, where do you see yourself long term?
Oh man, dude, it's funny. I was just having this conversation today, but I mean, honestly, like I feel like long term meaning what? Like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, like I myself, for example, right? Like as a creative, made music, photography, I do this podcast thing, and long term, I'm going in on this moving forward. Not to say I won't ever make music, not to say I won't ever dabble in photography, imagery, that sort of thing. But my creative energy will be put into this art form of broadcasting, podcasting, what I'm doing here today. For yourself, right? When I'm looking at what it might take to do Seventh Eye Club versus what it takes to run a studio, maybe some similarities, but I see them as like scratching different itches. Like they're not really the same things. What's your weapon of choice here creatively? Is it the fashion? Is it the production, content creation? Like, what's really your weapon of choice here that you think will be the thing to carry you long term?
I think at the end of the day, man, like, although at times, right, like a lot of people ask me this question, like, how are you doing all this shit and like trying to balance it all? And I think for me, it's great for me to have a lot going on, because when I get bored of one thing, I just work on the other thing. And then when I get bored of that, I go back and work on the other thing some more. I honestly like see myself being in I like the industries that I'm in right now. I love media. That's a lot of what I consume. I consume a lot of podcasts. I love the culture of hip hop, of Afrobeat, of music in general, right? Like I love having conversations with artists and learning, right? I love fashion, right? Like I love the idea of building a brand. I love the idea of helping other people achieve their dreams as well. So that plays into the studio. That plays into giving people a platform to be able to express their vision and their thought leadership. So for me, I think in the next couple of years and long term, I'd like to be dabbling in these different things, and maybe it's just one thing that becomes bigger than the other one. Which is kind of the thing that becomes the main priority. But for me, I want to be able to dabble in all of them, but without the stress of having to build it, right? So operating from more of like a consultant role, right? Because I have done the good thing about my life, even though I've done so many different things and haven't really mastered anything, I've been able to learn a lot about different things. So for me, when I'm 30, 35, 40 years old, I don't want to be waking up every single day trying to build 10 different businesses. I don't want to be doing that, right? I want to be able to leverage the experiences of everything that I've done and be able to dabble in each, and maybe even consult with people that want to start brands, consult with people that want to build platforms, consult with people that want to do media. And pass on what I've learned to those other people, and then just kind of live the life that I want and not be restricted by financial situations or being landlocked because of brick and mortar locations. Like I want to be able to do it, but I won't be as stressed, for sure not.
Word. And when it comes to the Seventh Eye Club, just that brand, I know you've got some things that you won't reveal, but like let's just talk about, like, in the short term, what can people expect from this brand, and how can they get the drip is the question.
So the first and foremost thing, man, like I want to drive this point home, right? Like a lot of people these days are starting clothing brands, right? With social media, you can market, you can sell, you can get on TikTok, you can have a viral video and then put up a t-shirt design and sell out because you have an audience. For me, man, like I've really spent the time developing the brand and the ethos and ideating on what can separate Seventh Eye Club as a brand, right? I don't just want to have a t-shirt brand. I don't even just want to have clothes in general. You feel me? From Seventh Eye Club, what you can expect is something different, something refreshing, something that when you see what we're doing with the brand, once we really get rolling, I want people to be like, I've never seen anybody do it like that before. I've never seen anybody present this in that way. And to me, that's kind of why I do everything that I do, right? It's just to be different and present new ideas and new thoughts. And that's really what you can expect from the brand. Outside of great quality, I'm back on my sewing machine vibe. So every piece, every garment, at least for the short term, will be touched by me. Tags sewn in by me. And all of the marketing, all of the messaging, all of the branding is all done by me as well. So this isn't something where everybody else, like I've got a whole bunch of other people that are doing this and then I'm just standing in the camera like, yeah, buy my shit. Nah, like everything is touched by me.
You mentioned being different. Like I gotta ask because, you know, you said being different, but I'm looking at you. What do you call what's on your nails? What's going on here with the nail paint? You got the rock star lifestyle going. Like, talk to, like, help a old understand. Like, what does that mean, and what does it like say about you? Just the whole vibe with the nails. Like, break that down for an old man.
Really, man, it depends on who you talk to. But for me, to be completely transparent, like it started off, I wanted to just add another piece of creativity to me, right? And I'm always looking to do some different but there's certain lines that I won't cross. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm never gonna do something like super edgy. Like I would never wear a dress. Like there are certain things that I would never do.
You don't have the matching toes.
Hell no. No.
Okay. All right. I'm just curious.
I grew like I bite my nails, or I have my whole life, and I really take pride in like my aesthetic in the way that I present myself, whether that's fashion or just skincare or hair or whatever the case may be. A big insecurity of mine has always been like I can put on a dope ass fit. I can put on a nice watch, some beautiful bracelets, and like dress myself up. But then when I go to shake somebody's hand, my nails, like my nails are bitten. Painting my fingernail, I tried like the stuff to put on them where it tastes bad, it's bitter when you bite. But for me, I was like, nah, like I'm gonna invest in like a really nice like a manicure with nice designs. Like I don't just like paint my one color. Like I got sevens, I got flames, I got smiley face, I got all sorts of on my fingers. It's a way to like be cool, but also I don't bite my fingers anymore. You know what I'm saying? So it draws attention, but it's in a different way. People aren't looking at my hands like, oh, this bites his nails. It's more like, oh, he paints his nails. You know? Yeah.
Yo, that's funny, yo. I ain't gonna lie to you. That's funny, yo. Like you said, no, this don't bite his nails, he paint his nails. Like that to me is funny, but at the same time, it's solution focused. Like, okay, like I'm following what you're doing here. Like, so because the overall, like you got, like you said, you got the blonde hair, the tattoos, barbed wire, painted nails. Like you mentioned earlier in the pod about the reality of how you present yourself versus how people received you and how that impacted certain things, right?
Yeah.
So given where you are today and how you've synthesize and process the journey. We mentioned spaces. Sometimes you wear the long sleeves, etc. Right? But like being comfortable to be who you are, like at what expense? I guess is my question. Like, is there a line? Is there like just for like because every artist I feel like has this where it's just like nah, I won't do it. Like like you said, no dollar amount, but like.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you foresee that like would make you shift kind of from how you are moving today?
No, nothing at all. I think honestly, man, like, dude, being in the city definitely played a role in it, right? Because I like to stand out. Like, I like to be different. And I also am big on like my avatar. I kind of realize like we only have one body, right? Like, why not make it look as dope as possible? You feel what I'm saying? Like, and for me, I'm just kind of like, I'm not a feminine dude. Like, I'm a very masculine guy. And I also like the perspective of when I meet somebody and you can kind of tell, because regardless of what year it is, whatever it is, people are, when they look at you and they see tattoos and they see blonde hair, like people have like certain stigmas. You know what I'm saying?
They're going to make assumptions.
Exactly. And one of the things that I live for is when I first meet somebody versus 30 minutes after having a conversation with them, you kind of see like, they're just kind of like, wait, what? Like, I didn't think this dude could like have a conversation. I didn't like, that's interesting. Like, he's got his nails painted, but he's talking about real estate. Like, you know, he's in corporate sales. Like what? Like what? He did what? He brought in how much new business? Like he's doing XYZ. And I kind of live for that moment. Hipping them to what's going on. Because at the end of the day, like you can't judge a book by its cover, right? But what makes you buy a book is the cover a lot of the time. Is it going to stand out? Is it going to pop? Is it going to get that attention? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like when I met P. Diddy, if I didn't have an interesting look about me and I was just a square, like a regular looking person, and no disrespect, I didn't mean that in a disrespectful way, but if I didn't have a little bit of an edge, he probably would just been like, oh yeah, bro, like dude. But because I looked a little different, I think it made him look twice and be like, oh, like what's up, bro? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because it's different. I feel like it's marketing at the end of the day. It's remembrance. When you have a unique look about you and you have a unique perspective and you carry yourself a certain way, it's hard for people to forget you. In this world where it's so easy, like the people's attention span, and it's so easy to be forgettable. You know what I'm saying? Like, and why not be remembered for something? I'm not hurting anybody.
Nah, that's dope. No, that's dope. And I agree 1,000%. Like, we don't get but so many chances to express ourselves and present ourselves in this world. Why be anything other than what we want to be while we're here? Like, I agree with that 1,000%. Like, yo, I really got to applaud, man. Like, I got a lot of respect for you and the path you took to get to where you are. And I really gotta applaud like the word I'm looking for. I'm finding trouble here, but just like the willingness to move forward. Like because a lot of individuals, man, when they hit rock bottom or they get hit with that adversity, they stay there and it becomes a traumatic life event that they never move past. And then everything roots back to, oh, well, I never had X, or I never had Y, or I never had Z. And you learning through, like we said, like what quote unquote failures, but just lessons being learned along the way, moving you closer and closer. But that's where the onus is on us as individuals. Once you stop, that's on you. You know what I'm saying? Like once, you know, shit is going to happen to all of us. But once you stop, you can't blame nobody else than anybody in that mirror. When stuff happens to you, let it hurt. Let it sting. But what are you going to do next? That's really the question. And I think you are a great example of a young person who not only did that time and time again, but continues to do that even now. Like, no complacency, no set. It's like, okay, I got to this next step. Now I'm trying to get to the next step and the next step, and everything's leading you towards the next thing, man. So I just got to applaud that. it's for myself, it's one of the things that I'm genuinely happy to see is the next generation doing things the right way.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that people do things perfect, but like right thought process, right energy, just the right level of aptitude to do to do it in a way that's not even selfish. It's like, nah, like I'm about my business. I'm about my journey and community along the way. Like these are things that I admire, and I'm glad that you were able to come on here and share some of the story, because I think a lot of people can take away some tidbits, maybe even use it to help their own situations, but things are going to happen. What are you going to do next? How are you going to execute? And I think that's one of the bigger takeaways from hearing your story. As we kind of start to pivot to the end here, I'm curious, just from your own journey, your own experience, like we've talked about quite a bit. What are some of the like takeaways that somebody who might hear this, maybe they haven't been following you, maybe they don't know Ryder, maybe they don't know Seventh Eye Club, maybe they don't know about the podcast. Like, if they don't get nothing else from this and listening to you, hearing what you've gone through, what do you hope that people will hopefully walk away from after hearing something from this podcast?
Yeah, man. I mean, this sounds cliche, and thank you so much for saying that too, man. And kudos to you as well for balancing creativity and tech and professionalism as well. I think you're doing a great job with that, and I appreciate you having me on. And maybe I can return the favor if you're ever in New York. We could do a thoughts episode. But yeah, man, I mean, the biggest thing that I would say, if I wanted somebody to take away one thing from this, is like, at the end of the day, man, like, is you got to live with the decisions that you make. And one thing about the past, you can't change it. You know what I'm saying? You up, you make a mistake. The best thing that you can do is to sit in that for a minute. Don't feel bad for yourself and be like, oh, like, well, if I would have done this, or I could have done that, or I would have did this, or I should have did this. Nah, accept the fact that you made a mistake. Accept the fact that you up. And this goes for business. This goes for life. This goes for relationships. This goes for anything. If you make a mistake, or you take the wrong path, or you feel like you wasted time in something, there is no such thing as wasted time, because you're learning, right? Everything is a learning lesson. And for me, I would just say, right, like, don't be afraid to fail. Like, don't be afraid to wake up and say, oh, I'm going to try this because I care about it. And the thing is, right, like, I'm shooting this right now. And if you guys watch this all the way through, you heard that I did college football, college lacrosse, courier property management, direct-to-consumer sales, mortgage lending, tech sales, working for an agency, starting my own agency, running a clothing brand, working in tech sales, like doing all these different things, having an artist development platform, having a clothing brand. And the thing is like, yo, 3 months, 6 months from now, I could be doing some completely different shit.
Right.
But the thing is like, it doesn't mean that because those things that I did in the past didn't pan out, it doesn't mean that I'm not successful. It doesn't mean that I'm not talented. It doesn't mean that I'm not capable. It just means that I'm not afraid to take a risk. I'm not afraid to turn down an opportunity. I just feel like a lot of times people overthink situations, and they're so busy viewing the what ifs as opposed to looking at what is. And sometimes we just got to do shit, man. We got to try shit. Sometimes you got to fall and scrape your knee, man. If I look at somebody and they don't have any scratches and scrapes, I'm like, damn, you haven't even lived.
No doubt.
You feel me? But enjoy the present moment.
Yo.
It doesn't matter how you feel.
I really enjoyed this conversation, man. And I think I will be in New York top of the year. We'll circle back. We'll circle back on that, but I think I will be up there top of the year. And just aside from that, next time I'm up there, I'm definitely going to make sure we link up, so I can at minimum see what you got going on with the studios, and hopefully link up to record something up there in person. That'll be dope for sure.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. If you guys want to support, or I don't even like to say support because it sounds like I'm asking for charity, but if you love good clothes, if you love good vibes, if you love something that means more than just something that you wear, if you want to be a part of something bigger than just a t-shirt or a hoodie or whatever, Seventh Eye Club, launching in fall of 2023. I don't want to give y'all an exact date yet because it might change, but it's launching in fall of 2023. If you're watching this however long from now and you're already a part of the club, thank you for joining the club. And
how can they sign up? How can they sign up if they happen to catch this?
Well, all of our releases are going to be first based on mailing list. So if you want to sign up for the mailing list, go to the website and type your email in, and you'll be entered into an email cadence where I'll keep you up to date with behind the scenes, what's going on with the brand, when the next collections are coming out, and you'll even get exclusive access to drops before the general public does. Go to seventheyeclub.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Seventh Eye Club. If you are a dope ass artist and you know dope ass artists as well, or you know if you know dope ass artists or you are a dope artist, check out Cut Different TV. If you're ever in New York, you need a place to record your sound and work with talented engineers, come to Cut Different Studios. If you got a podcast like my dog G and you trying to record, come to Cut Different Studios.
Yo, Ryder, appreciate you. Any last words here before I play this outro music?
Any last words, man? If you watched this all the way through, I appreciate you. I know I was all over the place with my story, but that's just me. Follow me everywhere at Ryder Van Gogh. We got a lot of coming. Yeah, we're going to keep taking risks and keep succeeding and keep slaying giants. So, G, thanks for having me on, man. We're going to spin this back.
No doubt. Yo, keep doing your thing. I can't wait to see what's coming with the Seventh Eye Club collection. Hopefully something nice. I might have to pick me up an item here for the fall. Definitely like the luxury, the heavy cloth. You know what I mean? It's luxury, so don't expect going there paying them little cheapo prices. This is that high-end luxury fashion. You know what it is. This is the G podcast where we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future, and everything else. Big shout out to the homie Sebastian Ryder for joining. Make sure y'all check that out. Seventh Eye Club. We out of here, man. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure y'all tune in for more.
Looks like you got off course there, Shane.
Doesn't matter how you
I'm not
feel.
taking no talk tonight. You see me drink yet?
We are out of here.